G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. A little bit of a story about attention to details and sequencing. This thing is supposed to be a perforated monocoque structure. Monocoque is a French word for eggshell. So the flat bottom of the eggshell is bolted to the concrete slab. $2,000 worth of eggshell on $3,000 worth of slab. And what connects the footing to the wall panels are these little screws here, and these are actually aftermarket add-ons which look like that and were brought in by the bloke I paid to put the thing together for times when it was apparent that the little stock standard as issued with the kit self-tappers weren't actually up to the job. So when they were air quotes finished, I was handed a plastic packet with a whole lot of them little unfit for purpose, we thought, or I was under the impression, little self-tappers with which the wall panels were held together. And yeah, there's a big one there, and 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 otherwise there's nothing to actually anchor the footing that's dyno bolted to the slab twice, 3 times, actuarially. There we go, there's another one. So there are 3 of them dyno bolts to anchor the C-section footing to the slab. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 of the heavy-duty He-Man self-tappers anchoring the footing to the wall. So I decided I'm just going to have to go around there with the centre punch and the self-tappers and the electric screwdriver and put those into there. And I went around and I counted the number of places where the theory is apparently that these little perforations are supposed to be engaged by the folded lip on the other side of the C-section, and that's actually supposed to hold the wall section to the footing. I think it is, but only during assembly. Anyway, there seem to be about 70 places where I'm going to have to stick those in. And would you believe it? I counted the screws and I must have gone around and picked up every one that ever got dropped on the grass, because there's about 74 screws in the bag, the little self-tappers. So yeah, that's what I've got programmed for the afternoon. Later on, I'll go around and drill up through here and stick a rivet from the bottom, because what's going on here, I'm not entirely certain, but there's an entirely different number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One, a pop rivet that I put up there, a big heavy one and a big heavy one, because these ones were falling out. And there's another pop rivet I put up through to try and bring these roof panels together. That one there's going to cop a pop rivet going up through it again from the bottom. And yeah, more pop rivets are going to go in from the bottom. So there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 of the tiny little allegedly unfit for purpose type self-tappers. And that's on the south side where you're going to get the most possible wind coming in and viciously running into the shed. So yeah, there's stuff like that that's got to be dealt with. And I have already gone along and put a whole lot of silastic into sealing that up so that when water runs down the outside of the shed, it can't flow back underneath the C-section. And once I get through with affixing a battery box and a little bit of a fuse box hutch onto the outside of here, having cut and shut and reshaped and repurposed and resized the pallet which the shed came on, run around and cut relief grooves with a chainsaw so that that can then be wood screwed from the inside with a washer to affix that. Yeah, as you can see, it's all happening in real time, and then I'll draw it down afterwards, but that's going to be happening. And although that battery box and the sort of control hutch is going to have their own roofs, the main big fix is to hang a gutter within the 40mm eaves and overhang, so that you don't have everything that comes off the roof running down here and having to be stopped by the last ditch defence. So yeah, that's kind of like what I've got programmed. And when all of these have been centre punched, the better to try and stop these bloody things from slipping out. After first being pre-drilled just enough to give that little bastard of a thing something to bite into. Where the bloody thing failed to actually engage on the other side and actually broke the silicon seal for me, so that was kind of a failure, eh? Clearly brought on by the self-tapper. The grip is insufficiently long, and that particular junction, the wall panel was bent, or the channel was bent in the fitting of the dyno bolt, so therefore it didn't engage. Hopefully the others will be better, but for this one, that's too short. Let's hope that with that one being wrong, because it's A, got a seal washer on it, and B, it's got a hex drive, let's hope that's not too long. And I don't know whether you can see that, but full marks for quality control in whatever part of the world that thing was built, because it's got a chunk of molten steel or congealed galvanizing. You can't get your screwdriver into it. So first one of them out of the bag turned out to be wrong. Bugger. The one on screen left is what they're supposed to look like, with crisp little cruciform holes, the better to receive the screwdrivering bit. There, take that. That'll fix it into place, holding this onto that, which is in fact the purpose structurally of having the screws in the first place. And of course, blind Freddy could see that it would be a whole lot easier to put all of those in place while the wall panels were lying flat on the ground. But corners had to be cut, time had to be shaved, because we had all vastly underestimated the amount of skilled, experienced labour required to assemble one of these bloody things. So yeah, they tried to put it up as fast as they could to get on to the next thing and get off the place before I discovered just what fun they'd left behind for me to play with. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. It goes on. And the next learning is that the points on these things are not hard enough to actually function as self-tappers. So yeah, little tiny metal textures, yes. Self-tappers, no. So counting the big one we just put in, we've got another 11 of these, which I guess I'll share out among the 4 of these bottom surfaces. Corners had to be cut. Time had to be shaved. Grr, snarl. Okay, well, that one worked. At last. At least something bloody worked. And this shed is getting to be an unusual thing. Right. East wall looking more secure. I only put that one into the north wall because it wasn't too bad really. There's a bit of a gap along there and a bit of a gap along there, but such is life. West wall, got two there. And two there. So the last four are going in here, and yeah, see what I mean about sequencing? You got to play with the footings before you can play with the battery box. Perfectly obvious, perfectly simple, but if you get it wrong, yeah, you might be on your hands and knees doing an awful lot of swearing trying to put these little screws in after you've already locked it all up. Let's hope this works one-handed. And it finally did. Two more. Times, we hope. There. At some point I should probably come and put a few more in along there. But to all intents and purposes, at least now, the wind should not pull the shed off the slab, I hope. So I can progress the battery box and the inverter charge controller's little hutch. And I think that'll do it for this video. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Quite a good spot from which to observe one's little handiwork. I find that after a couple of, well, maybe only an hour and a half of bending over and drilling and hammering and tapping and screwing and unscrewing and measuring and trying again, it is time to hit the lolly water, I guess. Arr. That does make backaches fade into insignificance. So I find. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.